The presenting sponsor of Moon Tower Soccer is FVF Law.
To find out what makes FVF a different kind of injury law firm, you can visit fvf.law.
Hello, friends, and thanks for listening to Moon Tower Soccer. This week, we will talk about Austin's 2 consecutive Leagues Cup victories, and then preview their final Leagues Cup match, or the Phase 1 match anyway. We'll talk about what would happen to make another one happen, and then back to MLS play against FC Dallas, and cover some other Austin FC news. My name's Landon, and I'm joined, as always, by Mr. Jeremiah Bentley.
Hey, everybody, I'm Jeremiah Bentley. One of the things that we talked about before we just started recording is I'm back in my study, which feels like I have not done a show from back here for a long time, to the point where apparently the sun sets at a different time than it did before, and so the lighting is off.
Yeah, Jeremiah was asking me if the light looks weird, and I was like, I haven't seen you in this room in like 2 months, it feels like, so I have no clue what it's supposed to look like.
Well, I think before we get into the match, let's talk about our weekend. So I guess sometime last week you sent a text to a group of friends of ours, and you're like, Ashley's out of town. Let's go do some dude bro stuff, which I assume means like shooting machine guns, probably eating raw meat. And I couldn't make it because like I kind of owe my wife an actual night out on the town on Saturday. But what did that end up being like for y'all?
Yeah, I mean, the description of what the night was going to be was a little bit tongue in cheek, which I imagine doesn't surprise you, of like a bunch of dudes getting together with their bros and doing guy stuff. The group of boys in this chat are I've referred to our group of friends as soft boys before, in a very like loving and complimentary way. And so we went out to a dive bar, we had some burgers, had some beers, talked about therapy and what we want to do with our futures.
Yeah.
So it ended up being it was like it was a very nice time out with the boys, but it was still not super unrepresentative or surprising of what you would expect from this particular group of boys.
Which that's my favorite group of boys too. So I mean, no shame, just because I wasn't able to go out, with y'all. But I was like, I feel like tequila shots at the strip club are probably not happening with this group of guys, and I would be surprised and disappointed if it did. So like, I'm glad y'all had a good time.
Yeah, Mike made a joke in the chat that we were gonna stand around the car and like change the oil in the car and have beers there, and people kept carrying that on to the point where I was afraid some people believed that, and I had to like make a disclaimer. It's like, we are not working on cars during this during this hangout.
Not mine, at least, right? Nobody's touching my car. If y'all want to do it,
nobody's. I'm not spending my free time working on a car.
No, that's fair. That's totally fair. Yeah, and then because on Sunday night for this match that we'll talk about, obviously, Jackson Bentley has been 1 week into football, and last week, every day he came home and had to take a salt bath because this game is kicking his rear end too much. Or practices, because it's hot and it's long, and he maybe didn't do all the off-season workouts that the coaches gave him on the paper that he was supposed to do. So I ended up telling him he needed to stay home and not go to a match where it's probably going to be hot, although it turned out to be fine, at 8 o'clock. And so I got to watch last night's match from the front row of the supporter section right behind the goal, which is a thing that I don't very often do, but it was super fun. So thanks to Elise and Sonia and Tony and Michelle and Christine, who all invited and or at the same time guilted me to come down there and hang out, because it was awesome. And the only thing I was afraid of is because I haven't been down there in a long time, I was not going to be able to like live up to the responsibility that comes with that very public spot. So I feel like I did my best, enjoyed the heck out of it, chanted, jumped, got super wet. It is all water now, which is awesome, because I feel like it was a mix of water and beer and soda and occasionally a glass of wine, the first couple years when I was in there. Yeah. So it was incredible. And the fact that the score is what it was probably had a lot to do with it, because if we'd have lost 4-1, would have not been the same time.
So my parents aren't coming to the America match on Thursday, and Ashley's out of town. So I may end up in the supporter section on Thursday as well. I will likely not sit in the first row of the supporter section, but Jeremiah, I've told a few people this over the last week, and you may know this already, but I have never watched a game from the supporter section.
I don't think that I knew that, and I will tell you, I was thinking about you when I was like behind the goal, but where the post was blocking some of my action in the north end, and like Landon would hate this tactical view right now. We'd have to go back and watch it as soon as he got home, because it is very hard to follow what's great for vibes, very hard to follow what's going on the field.
Yeah, our buddy Mark, who is a capo, so down in the mix for sure, and helping like lead that craziness in the south end. He was saying, well, I don't know if you're going to get the experience that you really want during a Leagues Cup match. The vibe is a little bit different. I was like, Mark, I don't know if you know what experience I want.
I did see Mark too. He was one of the people I walked past who was also like, hey, it's interesting to see you here, but welcome. Yeah.
All right, should we talk about the soccer now?
Yeah, let's talk about the soccer. I feel like this is the theme that came up in the chat and has come up among everybody I've talked with. Whereas 2 weeks ago, I think we would have called Leagues Cup a joke of a money grab of a tournament. And now I believe it to be the most important tournament in the entire world. And I'm so excited about what Austin's managed to accomplish so far.
Yeah, I don't think I don't remember calling it a money grab or a joke, Jeremiah. I think that was a different podcast. We've always said that Leagues Cup is the most important tournament in existence.
Anyway,
right after Copa Tejas, depending on the year.
On the year, right? Because sometimes Copa Tejas is really, really important and really doesn't matter. One, it is actually the one thing I will say about it for sure is it is nice if you're going to change coaches and you're going to change systems and you're going to change playing style to have a low leverage tournament like Leagues Cup in order to be able to try those things out and hopefully apply them back to league play. And two, they seem to be working.
Yeah, absolutely. I think these are the two of the most like coherent and intentional games that I've seen Austin play in a really long time. And the fact that we had two of them back to back, I think is really encouraging. And I think Davy Arnaud deserves some credit. I think he was rightfully so catching some heat in the weeks before that because of his plan and his tactics not working. And he was saying, trust the system. Like, we're going to get there. We're going to keep working on it and we'll get better at it. And you saw that happen in these games. I think there's a valid counter argument to that to say, what if these Mexican teams we're playing just aren't very good? And I think that's fair. I think especially Puebla. Like, I think Tijuana, we'll get into it a bit later. I think neither of these teams looked great on the night. I think Puebla might be just a straight up bad soccer team. But we have looked far worse against bad teams consistently in MLS play over the last how many years. So I think both things can be true, that the opponents were weak. They didn't play great on the night, but also Davy Arnaud has these teams playing with intentional patterns in the attack. It leads to players feeling confident, moving the ball quicker. And so maybe against a better team on a different night, it doesn't look as good, but you play who's in front of you. And hopefully that confidence and familiarity with the system can grow from these results and carry that into this game against America on Thursday and then into MLS play after that.
Yeah, and I think you just have to look back to 2020. Was it 2023? When was Austin's first Leagues Cup experience? Was it 23?
I
first
believe
Leagues
so.
Cup? Yeah, and they were a higher seed. They played two of the near bottom of the table Mexican sides and played terrible against them. And that's excluding the Violette match, which I think was the thing that was in everybody's brain when talking about like playing against a bad team and how it's gone poorly. So you definitely need to keep credit for it. And the thing that I was the most excited about, and I think Davey talked about this, like the ideas were there against Colorado in a way. And I don't think, but just because of the way it turned out, like we appreciated it. But the thing that you mentioned about like playing with speed, playing with passion, just like going after it, like that did not happen against Colorado. And that happened in both of these matches. And I feel like that was the biggest difference, more than just like the lineup or the way I know we'll talk about this, like the shape and we played offensively and defensively, but they were playing, they were playing with purpose. And I don't know that we've always seen that from this club, even when they were put in places where they should be able to succeed by the coach.
Yeah, and I think that will be the interesting thing to see is when we play a team that does press us the way Colorado, that plays a little differently, what will it look like? And we'll find out. But yeah, the fact that they're looking comfortable and confident and energetic now, I'm into it. So we can dig into that a bit more of like what was going on, what was working as we dig into the games. But maybe let's take a quick break and we'll come back and dive into those. When no one is around. Moon Tower Soccer is brought to you by our friends at FEF Law.
FEF is a different kind of personal injury law firm dedicated to community, transparency, and client education. And they have their own podcast called Summary Judgment that you can check out wherever you get your podcasts.
You can go to FEF.law to find out what makes FEF a different kind of injury law firm and why understanding your legal options can dramatically change the outcome of a case. Once again, that's FEF.law. Amplify Credit Union is a member-owned financial cooperative that served the needs of Central Texans for over 5 decades. As a credit union, Amplify has no shareholders or parent companies. That means more of your money stays in the community.
Amplify has been the home of fee-free banking since 2022. Their free checking accounts come with 0 overdraft fees or minimum balance. That means Amplify's fee-free checking accounts help you get more mileage from your everyday spending.
Amplify membership is open to any Texas resident. Learn to trust your bank again at Amplify Credit Union. To learn more and register for free parking at the Esperanza branch on game day, visit goamplify.com/moontower.
Landon, and to be clear, because sometimes I forget about this, those are open for the Leagues Cup matches. Because I talked to the Amplify folks, and they added them for all 3 of them, and I know I let some people know in Slack for the first 2, so if you're looking for a place to spot, park for the Club America match, you can park at the Esperanza branch.
Yeah, sign up at goamplify.com/moontower. All right, we are back. We are going to dig into Austin FC's 2 victories in Leagues Cup so far. Jeremiah, let's start off with the Tijuana game, which happened on Thursday of last week. And then after that, we'll dig into the Puebla game, which happened last night as we're speaking right now on Sunday night. Where should we start here?
Well, let's just start with sort of what people expected going into the tournament. And it was kind of funny last night because I ran into a lot of people. I was like, hey, I feel like I saw you 3 days ago and I have a show to do tomorrow. Like, it's quite a run. And it's going to be an ongoing thing for this team. I remember you telling me about that, I think, going into the World Cup break about how many matches we were going to have a week coming out. But I was just looking at the schedule for the next month at least, and there are a lot of matches coming up for this team. So one question becomes health, because we got kind of a sort of iffy update on John Bell and Mikel Dessler, basically being they're still not back, which was true for both matches. And I think the other thing becomes, how do you rotate? How do you get the best out of every individual player when you're going to have this many matches over such a short period of time?
Yeah, and we have seen quite a bit of rotation. I actually saw some criticism of Davy for not rotating much. I feel like maybe that's a little unfair because of like the starting lineups didn't rotate that much leading up to this tournament. But if you look at who's playing 90, who's playing 60, there was quite a bit of strategic minute management in that regard. And I think that has continued into Leagues Cup with the way we've seen the lineups be picked in these games. And so there is some rotation in this starting lineup against Tijuana. Facundo Torres, Owen Wolf, and Brendan Hines-Ike are all on the bench. Ervin Torres gets the start. I said last week that I would really like to see him get a start sometime over the next month. It came sooner than I thought it would, and he got his second one right after
and
that.
Twice.
We'll talk about when we get into the Puebla game. But we get, Stuver in goal, of course. A back 5 of Rosales, Djordjevic, Swatak, Biru as one of the center backs again, and Gallagher. This is the wrong-footed wingback look with Gallagher on the left, Rosales on the right. Then you get Sabovic and Sanchez as your 2 central midfielders, and then a front 3 of Ervin Torres, Brandon Vasquez, Mirto Uzuni. And so it's what we've seen, what they've tried to do in the last few games, where Rosales and Gallagher will become your width, become your wingers in the attacking shape. Ervin Torres and Uzuni are kind of playing those inside channels, and then will rotate around with those wingers at times. and then you have a back three and two holding midfielders as the back five there.
Yeah, and when you talked about the criticism, I mean, I think the one place where you haven't seen much rotation is like on that, as much at least, is on that back line, and the fact that you don't have, like we just talked about, John Bell and Mikhail Dessler severely limits your options in order to do that. And this is, I think the thing that's true for me on the week, like Gary Biru, for a guy that often wanders around and does his own thing and is also not very tall, like he can be a pretty serviceable center back when called into action, which he ends up having to do both matches this week.
Yeah, I thought Biru was quite good in both of these games. And yeah, it's hard not to talk about both of these games in the same breath, but I don't want to get too far out of order.
Okay.
But I'll have more to say about the back line as we get into the Puebla game. But let's get into kind of the action of this game. So we get 2 first half goals in this game. First one comes from Joseph Rosales in the 16th minute. Uzuni, like I said, Uzuni and Ervin Torres were playing. I think Davy Arnaud has called them the attacking midfielders in this shape. So the offensive shape that they're looking to get to is a 3-2-2-3. So the 3 in this case is Biru, Djordjevic, Svatak. And then you have Savovic and Sanchez. The next 2 is we'll call them attacking midfielders here, which were Uzuni and Ervin Torres. And then Vasquez up top, and then those 2 wing backs pushing up high to become wingers. So in this case, Uzuni, playing as that attacking mid, drops into the channel, receives the ball, plays a big diagonal to the backside as Rosales is making a backside run. His touch in the box is almost a little bit too heavy where the ball stops dead and he keeps running, but he's able to cut back, get back onto it, and curl it in with his left foot. The pass was really good from Uzuni, I thought. And then just the run and the timing to see it all, I thought was really well organized. And I thought this Tijuana back line was pretty frequently disorganized by our movement. And I think we could have played in behind more often. And a few times guys didn't see it in time, or they would hesitate, and then the runner would be offside. But this was a time where we saw it, and Uzuni saw it in time and played a really nice ball that got Rosales into a really great position. And then he took advantage of it and finished off the play.
Yeah, and you said almost, like, for a normal human, or both of us in Sunday League, or almost anybody, like, he absolutely took too heavy a touch to get back to, but, like, the dude is so athletic, and he didn't panic in that moment and just, like, got back on the ball. Like, it was incredible that he was able to do that, and I feel like that's the ability to make movement toward the ball and recovery, I think, is the theme of both of these goals that we get in the first half, where this one and the Gallagher one both, like, they weren't all super clean. It's all good ideas, but it was like not all super clean possession, but we were able to make it work. And this is the first time that I got like 4 texts giving me a hard time about complaining about inverted wingers, which would also come in again 30 minutes later when the second goal comes in.
Yeah, so this one's Jon Gallagher. I've said this a ton of times. Jon Gallagher is a hammer, not a scalpel. Let the man get into spaces with speed where he doesn't have to overthink things. Just receive, play. That's what Jon Gallagher needs to do, and that's when he looks at his best. And that's what happens here. I don't want to say that in a way that like takes credit away from him, because he does a good job. But it's a moment where he's making a run, he reacts, and he takes action very quickly. And I feel like whenever he does that, he tends to have better games. But it's more about getting him in positions where he can act in that way. And I feel like the system and where he's played and how we're playing often don't allow him to be that way. And this game very much did, which is, I think, part of why this inverted winger system did work on a night like tonight, where you have not just like in Colorado, we'd launch a ball upfield and then there'd be nobody there because we couldn't break through their press. We couldn't get numbers forward. In this game, we get a ball to them. So many times Rosales would take one touch inside and he'd have 4 guys running up the middle or on the backside. That's when an inverted winger makes sense. And so I thought this game really suited that that style of play in those guys, and we see it in both of these goals here. But Jon Gallagher, we get a celebration. I wasn't sure if we should talk about this on the show just because it's such a private thing, but
I think we can, because
yeah. They posted on social media, but Jon Gallagher's wife had a miscarriage a few weeks back. And so that part of his celebration was holding up a J, and their son's name was James, and the son that they lost. So really touching, like really happy to see Gally get that in this moment and such a hard time for him. But let's talk about how this one happens. So Svatak intercepts a Tijuana throw in, and we counter. Torres receives the ball central, and this is Ervin Torres. Maybe we should go with Ervin and Facu for the
instead of the last name.
Future. Yeah.
Yep.
So Ervin receives the ball central. He turns and looks right, but Rosales had just made a big run, and he's standing around midfield, and he's essentially like, I'm not doing it, bud. So Ervin then turns back to his left. He has Vasquez making a run like towards the penalty spot, and I think he's trying to slot in Vasquez on that run. A Tijuana defender goes to ground, gets a foot on it, and cuts the pass out to Vasquez, but it pops up into the air, and Gallagher is following up that run as well. Gallagher takes it on his chest, brings it down, switches across to his left foot, and hits it across the face of goal, and it sneaks in just into that far post. And he almost scored off of his chest not long before this, where a ball pops up, he takes it on his chest and hits it with the outside of his right boot, and the keeper makes a pretty good save on it. Otherwise, he almost scored in a very similar fashion right there. But yeah, good reactions there.
Yeah, it was really good for him. So that was like that was the last action of the first half, right? If I remember right, I don't think he even did hardly anything else after that. So go to half.
Close. And so we said that, talked about some of the themes between these two goals. I think there was like good reactions, good kind of the balls in were good ideas. But I think another thing is just using movement, using passing to pull a team apart a little bit so that you can take advantage of those moments. And I think we did a little bit of that in the build up to both of these goals as well.
Yeah, we did. I feel like that's what we did in both matches. So I guess I'll just ask you now, because I was looking at all the just raw numbers, and I feel like one of the big differences between the Colorado match and the two matches this week is just possession. Like Austin had more of the ball, and they were able to be more dangerous. And maybe it's because it's like everything in our whole lives. It's going to be a little bit of both. It's a little bit of the system finally like connecting and working, and a little bit of the other club letting Austin have the ball. But that feels like one of the, just looking at the basic numbers, that's one of the differences between this one and what we've seen out of this for Houston and Colorado both. It's just when you have the ball and you're going forward, you can be more threatening. You have the chance to create confusion among the back line of the opposing team, which they had not done when they were playing sort of like so deliberate in the last couple of league matches.
Yeah, for sure. One other thing I think we need to bring up is Brad Stuver. I think this win was less, I don't know, what's the word? Like less dominant than the Puebla one. Tijuana had chances. We had a little bit of luck on our side. We had some good defensive individual moments, but we had Brad Stuver as well. So a couple of big saves. There's one on a short range cannon shot from Preciado that Stuver saves, and then Hot Dog Georgievich is on his knees and dives and like heads out the second chance on the rebound on that little sequence as well. So really well done for both of those. And then a fingertip save on a transition moment. This is Preciado again, but I think we have a corner on our attacking side. Uzuni is one of the deep players, like the safeties essentially. Like you have two or three guys back to cover the transition moment if we lose the ball in the corner. Uzuni was one of them. The ball trickles out. He rushes forward to try to win it and does not win it. And so now it's just poor Ervin Torres back there by himself. And Preciado beats him for speed, gets past everyone. And then Svatak is running and is able to put Preciado off a little bit, but not enough to get anything on the ball, really. Preciado plays the ball across the face of goal. Stuver gets fingers on it. and puts it just wide, but really, really well done from him there. But
Yeah,
both of these moments are set piece chances where we react poorly to the second ball, be it Uzuni stepping up and not winning it, or I think Rosales misses a header on a ball in, not being able to clear the ball out of the box. I think that was one of the bad things about this game that almost hurt us a few times, and a little bit of luck and a little bit of Brad Stuver kept us safe from it.
Yeah, that's what I had written in the notes. Like Brad Stuver, the thing I didn't like was like Brad Stuver having to preserve the vibes basically by himself was a rough thing of the night, because that's a very different match. If he doesn't make those, I think you talked a few weeks ago, I guess it was the Houston match, where he wasn't able to make every save all the time, and it made a really bad night. And like, you can't expect him to do that, but it's amazing that he continues 6 years in to do that over and over and over again to make to largely contribute a victory to what could have been a very different result.
Yeah, absolutely. One other thing kind of structurally that I wanted to talk about that I thought was a nice touch from Arnaud here was our defensive structure and the pressing. How many times have we talked about this team not pressing as a unit and getting pulled apart far too easily? And in the Colorado game, they looked terrible. Playing in that back five is 5-2-3 in the defensive shape. That's what it was in this game. They've made some changes, and again, credit to Davy Arnaud for making these changes and getting the team organized within it. But instead of just having those front five do all of the running and have a line of back five sitting there just waiting for the guys to get to them, it was a little bit different. It was very organized and intentional, where as we're pressing, we weren't pressing super high, but we were kind of welcoming a ball wide. And that first ball wide, our wingback would push up and challenge there. So let's say they play it to their left, our right. Rosales pushes up, challenges that ball, and everyone kind of shifts and covers the next passes there. What happens next is they swing it back around to the left side. And so let's say they go from one of their wide deep players to the other wide deep player. Instead of rushing straight out to pressure that ball, what we did instead was everyone kind of retreated and said, okay, they can have the ball there. We're going to cover every other pass and then slow play the pressure onto this ball. And so instead of whoever the winger is, I guess it would have been Uzuni, instead of him rushing straight out and they play a little 1-2 pass around us and then we're cooked, Uzuni stays central, defends the pass back to the keeper, back to the center back. Everyone else shifts and just covers the next pass. And then as that ball gets progressed, then they kind of work up to that player. And by the time our defensive player is getting pressure on them, we have covered everything else. And so they got through it with a few clever, like 1-2 passes, or Heel Moro would kind of find something clever and get through it. So they still beat us every once in a while, but they had to earn it. We weren't just giving it to them. So I really liked that wrinkle that they added in there.
Yeah, and it helps just on a night like that where it's pretty warm to just make them work to earn those things so that you can take advantage of it, and where finally somehow Austin's like a pretty deep team, which we'll see from the subs that it can actually make a difference, where like you can afford to do that and like wear the other side out. We talked about this for 6 years and I refuse. I'm not like even say it out loud, but maybe the Heat can work for us sometimes.
Yeah. We need to, so there weren't any goals that counted in the second half, but there's still quite a few interesting things that happened in the second half. So let's talk about those for a bit. Right after the second half starts, Alexander Svatak is given a second yellow in the first minute of the second half. Hot Dog played a pretty poor pass that gets intercepted by Preciado. We've already seen how that man runs, and he takes off and is driving into the box. Svatak and Hot Dog both go in for a tackle. He goes down. They call a foul. Yellow is given to Svatak, which is his second one for another challenge, I believe, on the same guy earlier in the game.
I think so, yeah.
And so he's sent off. They go back to review it, and you can kind of see it on the broadcast, but they're all pointing at Hot Dog, and Hot Dog's pointing at himself, saying like, it was me. And I've seen people try to do that to just get away with, like, so their teammate doesn't get a red card, essentially. But you go back and watch the replay, and on the broadcast, you can see it that Svatak was absolutely going to foul him, and it would have been a foul that deserved a yellow. But Hot Dog just gets there first. It doesn't
got
let
in
him
the
do
way.
it.
Yeah.
And so, like, credit to the ref. I didn't like everything he did in this game, but credit to him going and checking it and seeing that, yeah, Svatak was going to foul him, but didn't, because Hot Dog did it first. And so takes the yellow away, gives it to Hot Dog. And I could have changed the game. Like, there's a lot of game left at that point. So going down a man and having to change everything about the way we were playing could have really hurt us. So that was a lucky little break there.
Yeah, and then the next, I think, what's like 17, 18 minutes later, we get a goal from Tijuana, and playing 11 on 11. So if it was 11 on 10, it might have been very different. But luckily, this is one that gets called back. And I want to know what you think about that. Like, I'm not sure I agree that this goal should have been called back. Like, that seems like, I think it was because I don't remember who was in the play. I know it was on Uzuni, was either offside or like dragged Uzuni, but it was tangential to the play that was going on, in my view.
Yeah, so there's a ball that like a cross comes in. I think it's Rosales, and then I don't remember their tall center back, the really tall guy that was back there. He's kind of challenging, or it might have been Preciado again. I don't know. It seemed like he was involved in every
Preciado was
play.
everywhere, dude. That was the one thing I was going to say. He was involved in everything.
Anyway, there's a Tijuana player there. Rosales goes in to try to clear the ball and doesn't do a great job. And then it falls to a guy at the top of the box, and they score. Like, hits it through traffic. Brad sees it late, and he's on the other side of the goal already anyway, so he can't get to it. And Owen doesn't close down the ball in time, and the guy's able to get the shot away. But that first cross in, that player was in an offside position. They did not touch the ball, but I think they deemed them as having interfered in the play because they were engaged physically. They're touching Rosales as Rosales tried to clear it out and did a bad job. So I think by the letter of the law, I can understand how Tijuana would be frustrated or annoyed by the call, but I think it's one that you have to give. Like, he's offside, he challenged for the play. That's interfering in the play from an offside position. So I think you have to give it.
And then the reaction is what really sort of, I mean, it doesn't make that much of a difference because the score doesn't change, but at that point, I was like, man, that ref's got like 11 guys in his face right now, and he kept trying to walk away, and people kept following him, and we don't really get to see this. Like, what's your sort of view on like what happens from there?
I missed the actual action. They didn't catch it on the broadcast because this is one of those kind of annoying broadcasts where there was too many close-ups and on things that didn't matter for my taste, and so there was not a single camera that caught what happened. But after they overturn the goal, Tijuana players surround the ref. I'm not looking at what's happening, and all of a sudden, I see the ref with a red card in his hand, and it looked like he had just shown it to someone. I didn't know who. I didn't know what happened. I see him kind of talking to players, kind of like lifting up his elbows, and then on the broadcast, you can kind of see the conversation. But it looks like Ivan Tona, number 8, one of their midfielders, like acted in an aggressive manner and touched the ref in some way or another. I don't know exactly what happened, but that was what the call was. And if he did like aggressively touch the ref, then you have to give a red. But without seeing it, I don't know if it was this ref being overly sensitive or if the guy actually did push him or hit him or something like that. I have no clue.
Yeah, well, and I guess luckily for Austin, like, it doesn't really end up having that much of an impact on the outcome of a game. At that point, it didn't seem like there was a great potential for Tijuana to come back in this one. Austin did not seem to be super interested in threatening for more goals after that point. Anyhow, and this is, I think, a theme between both matches where they feel like they kind of took the pedal off like later in the match, but they end up seeing this out with a 2-0 win. I think it was their first shutout since May 7th or something like that too. So good on that one. Yeah,
this game finishes with Ilie as a center back, the center back in that back three. Ervin Torres and Joseph Rosales as the two central midfielders, which is not the positions either of them started the game in. Owen Wolf and Jorge Alastue getting his first minutes as a no, this isn't his first minutes, is it? As a first team player, or is it?
I don't remember. Let me look him up
Anyway,
right quick.
early minutes as with his first team contract here. And then Austin kind of sees the game out with possession, which again, how many times we hear Josh Wolf say that's what he wanted to do, is like, you defend with the ball. And even that being like one of the main things he wanted to do, almost never being able to do it. And then we see them do it here. Mind you, a man down, but still, they did it.
That's all they needed to do. Yeah, they see this one out, and it's great. Man, so I was gonna post game. Well, all throughout the game and the post game, like I'm in the corner there in 106, right, and almost everybody around me is wearing a Mexican national team jersey and chanting Mora's name. And then, like, when the game ends, because the tunnel's right in front of me where the visiting team comes out, I get like overwhelmed by everybody running down to see, Mora, which I just want to, like, that's cool. It's cool to have anybody. I feel like it was cool when we had Sun come and have like such a big amount of support, but like the level of vocal support and people like yelling a guy's name over and over, and like every teenage girl around us screaming every time he got anywhere near the ball, like, it was awesome. And I'm probably happier about it because we won, and I probably would have been really annoyed if that happened and we lost, but it's great to have that kind of environment at Q2 Stadium in any way.
Yeah, totally agree with that. I have several like mixed thoughts and emotions about Gil Mora and the night that he had. I was very excited to get to see him play, and it was kind of fun and entertaining to hear everybody just yelling his name. And it's like a little bit of like that Messi effect of like, oh, this guy's really famous, let's go see him. Some of the people not knowing much about like anything else other than, oh, he's the guy, let's cheer for him. And so it like, one of the thoughts I had was, I really hope that Austin never gets like that kind of cultural superstar on the team, like to the Messi level, where when we were in Miami for that stadium opener this year, just the fact that people are chanting one player's name, even when he's not doing anything or involved in any of the plays, it's just, I don't know, it rubs me the wrong way of like, are you watching the game? Like, chant the other guy's name. This other guy just scored. Like, be happy for him. But then also to have that be the case when this kid's 17 and playing on like not a very good team, that it's just, I felt bad for him that that there's so much pressure on him, because with the Mexican national team, when he's surrounded by other really good players, I thought he fit in great. And like, he wasn't expected to be the guy on that team. He can just be a guy. And he did that very, very well for Mexico. On this team, he is expected to be one of the guys, if not the guy. And I think he's just not there yet to be able to pull any team across the line by himself. He might become that player. He's not that player right now. And I think it's kind of unfair to ask a kid to be the person to do that. So we shut him down pretty much. He didn't do much that dangerous. And there's moments, if you know who he is and you were watching him, you could see a few little things he did, like, oh, that's special. Like, not everybody in this field could do that, but not a lot of it mattered all that much in the grand scheme of the game.
Yeah, some of that's a little bit like we've seen countless Austin players be like, you understand why this person is talented and could make a difference. Osman Bukhari, for example, right? Like, did a lot of special things, but none of them ever led to results. I feel like that's a little bit of what we saw from him on the night. And I think very briefly, that crowd was announced as a 20,738 person sellout.
I saw
and
that.
If that is true, I think Felipe Mora had a whole lot to do with why many of the tickets went sold, even if people were not appearing in their seats.
Mora.
Oh, Gilberto, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was another thing. Like, I was curious what this crowd was going to look like, because Tijuana is not a huge team. And so I saw some Tijuana jerseys, but saw a lot more Mexican national team jerseys or Chivas jerseys or America jerseys. And so I think it was just a lot of the people there were there to see him specifically and no one else. we'll have some more thoughts later on after the Puebla game. We can kind of combine some of our specific player thoughts there. But first, let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more Moon Tower Soccer.
Moon Tower Soccer is brought to you by Grit and Guile Brewing Company. The city of Kyle's first ever brewery is opening downtown next year, home to a craft brewery and coffee roastery under one roof. Construction on their brick and mortar starts soon, but our friends at Grit and Guile are already roasting their single origin coffee, which they will ship to your door.
Order now at gritandguilebrewing.com. That's Grit and Guile, Gyle, brewing.com to learn more and to sign up for their first pour coffee subscription. Grit and Guile, your daily rituals deserve to be remarkable.
Moon Tower Soccer is about your best Sage Wilson Realty. And so I just saw a Sage Wilson sign around the corner from my house. And I almost talked about it on the show last week. And I felt like maybe I should actually ask Eric about it before publicly broadcasting a question. And I just got to say, it's 2 properties, super weird situation. And I wouldn't trust anybody to sell this property for me if it wasn't Eric Wilson, who knows the neighborhood and could do it. So if you have a normal house to sell, you got a weird thing going on with multiple zonings, you can also talk to Eric. Just don't get cut offside in this market.
The right strategy can turn today's opportunity into your winning goal. If you're looking for Sage Real Estate advice in Austin, contact our friends at Sage Wilson Realty. Be sure to check them out online at sagewilson.com. All right, we are back. We're going to look ahead to Austin FC's game versus Club America, and then also the Copateos match against FC Dallas. But first, let's talk more about this other Leagues Cup game that we won against Puebla. Where should we start here, Jeremiah?
Let's start, I think the question becomes, again, with this consecutive run of games, who's going to rotate, who are we going to see in the lineup? We see a little bit of it. Again, I think the thing that's really cool for us as fans of this team now is there's enough depth where rotating as 2 or 3 guys and not having to make a wholesale change to just give a match up. So that was good to see. And then I wanted to talk about the formation, because when the lineup comes out, and I think I was already down in the supporter section by that point in time, a lot of people were confused by what Austin was doing, who were the center backs, who were the fullbacks. Is this that 5 at the back again? Is this what looked to me just on paper like a straightforward 4-4-2, which maybe we weren't expecting to see, but given the way that Davy had talked about expectation for the way Austin plays, I think that's something worth discussing.
Yeah, it was interesting because you're right, on paper it looked like it was going to be something quite different. And so I was curious to get into the stadium and see warm-ups where they do some ball drills and you can kind of tell where folks are going to be lined up. And as they were doing passing and shooting and finishing drills, the back line will often go back, or at least the center backs will be back doing passing drills while the attacking half of the field is doing crossing and finishing drills. The back 3 doing the passing drills were Jon Gallagher, Alexander Svatak, and Guilherme Biru. And then Joseph Rosales was pushed up really high, wide left, doing crossing and finishing drills with the attacking team. So Davy Arnaud kind of confirmed this in the post-game press conference, but the defensive shape was a 4-4-2. And so it's a flat back 4, Gallagher, Svatak, Biru, and Rosales. So Biru playing just a straight-up center back in the defensive shape. And then the next line of 4, you had the 2 holding midfielders were Sabovic and Ervin Torres in this game. You had Facu Torres on the right wing, Uzuni on the left wing. But after seeing what they were doing in warm-ups and Gallagher being part of the back 3 in kind of those possession drills, I started looking for that as the game went on. And we scored so fast that it was kind of difficult to tell immediately. But after a few minutes, even though the defensive shape was a 4-4-2, the attacking shape was still that 3-2-2-3 that we saw in the Tijuana game. And that I think that what they wanted to do in the games before, but didn't always come off. But the back 3 in possession ended up being Gallagher, Svatak, Biru. So you had Gallagher and Biru playing true center backs in that back 3. Rosales would push all the way up and be that left winger. Then you had Facu Torres as the right winger. And then Ervin Torres and Sabovic as the deeper two mids. And then Owen Wolf and Uzuni were playing those attacking midfield roles and working those inside channels. So even though on paper we thought it might be something super different, the attacking shape was not that different. And what they were trying to do was not that different. It was just different personnel. And I think they expressed themselves in different ways in that same shape, but the shape was the same.
That's what I was going to say. I feel like the shape was the same, but sort of the way it worked out was differently. And we teased on this like kind of in the early. I mean, if I feel like the fact that Puebla was kind of bad probably has something to do with that. And this is, I believe to be true, the first multiple Torres in the starting lineup match we have, right? Where I finally had to write like E Torres and F Torres because we had them both in the lineup.
For a start, for sure. And I think in a lot of Ervin's appearances, he's subbed on for Facu in those games.
I think that's right. And I think we can just talk about this like right now before we even go in. Like Ervin Torres belongs playing in this league. And he teased on it in the first match, but he's not even just there's a concept in baseball of a replacement level player, which is like not really that good, but they're probably not worth getting rid of. Like this is not Ervin Torres. Like even at his age, like he is contributing and doing things that are different and unique for this team, and it's incredible to see.
Yeah, I was sitting in my normal seats at the game last night, and my buddy Profe was up there, and he's a big hater of the Danny Pereira trade, a vocal hater of it. And so something came up, and he was saying, okay, would you rather have Danny Pereira or would you have this money on the field right now, like in these games? And I said, we don't need Danny Pereira. We have a replacement. His name is Ervin Torres. Like he doesn't play the exact same way, but I think he's maybe like 70% of the dribbling ability and like the ball progression ability with the ball at his feet. But Ervin Torres already is a better passer of the ball than Danny Pereira is. And then the way that Ervin moved, and he would play a ball wide, make a vertical run, and Owen or Facu would find him making a run there, was progressing the ball in those ways. So slightly different way to get there, but was still able to like be the guy progressing the ball. And then the way he receives under pressure, turns out of pressure, can keep the ball moving, played some really nice through balls in, I think, both of these games. Maybe the ones I'm thinking of are in the Tijuana game, but really nice passing vision, really nice passing ability. The kid is really, really, really good. Davy Arnaud said in the post-game press conference, like, we knew he could handle it. We knew he was good. What he's done in these games so far is surpassing kind of what we thought he would be. So the kid is, I'm so happy to see it, just because I thought he could be this, and it's so fun to get to watch it actually happen.
Yeah, and if you're just like a fan looking for reasons to care about the second half of the season with a team that's going to have to play at its best to make the playoffs, I think just the fact that Austin is in a situation where they are just table-wise and player-wise creates a situation where we're going to see a lot of Ervin Torres, and that should excite everybody. And in another world where they have a better start, they don't move Pereira, and Burrell doesn't get fired, like maybe we don't get to see this much of Ervin Torres. And for me, that's one of the best things about what we have to look forward to for the rest of the year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's go into the hat trick, man. Like the second hat trick ever that Austin's gotten. Somehow it takes longer than any hat trick Austin's ever done because the first one came, was it 22 minutes from Musa Chite where he gets his 3 goals? It takes
that number sounds right.
34. Takes Mirto Uzuni 34, but still incredible from him.
I really liked in the post game like social media hit, give the social media manager's phone to a player and let them give him a message to the fans. And I love that Mirto said, like, I'm so happy to get my first hat trick in an Austin FC shirt. He
didn't even notice
had to add that
but
part
that's very
on.
Mirto.
Like,
yeah.
It's not my first one. It's my first one here, though. But yeah, it starts early, right? So 4th minute, some nice little passing sequences here. Owen Wolf drives into the middle of the field after a string of passes that kind of cuts through Puebla's defense. He takes a little bit of a heavy touch, but then recovers in time to kind of get back on the ball and force the defender challenging to foul him. Takes a pretty heavy challenge, which we'll see. He gets subbed off at halftime. And I think this is maybe the one that does it, where he's growing into games, looking a bit more fit. But Davy said they took him off at halftime when they didn't really want to because of, I think, this specific challenge. But we get the foul, get the free kick. Uzuni and Rosales are standing over it. Uzuni ends up taking it, hits it beautifully. And there's some really nice angles on the broadcast where they have one from directly behind him and then the camera inside the goal looking out, where you can see the way he plays it, like just high and wide of the wall, but doesn't, like, because he goes up and over the wall, he doesn't have to hit it with such power to dip it under the crossbar. It actually lands in the goal quite low, but the whip takes it so wide and the keeper's on the other side of the goal that he can't get there. So really, really well placed, really well taken. But again, the free kick comes from some nice passing sequences that get us into a part of the field where you're asking questions. We get the foul, and then Uzuni buries the free kick.
And that one was just so good to see, because we know less this year, but like historically, there's been finishing challenges and times when he's in the moments where he can do things. And even like wondering if he should be the guy to take the free kicks, because he might launch one into the bar in the north end above the first level. Like, it's good to see him to do that. And you've talked about several times about him being like a confidence guy, like an attitude guy.
Yeah.
And it feels like this is the best of it in this match. And I think every picture we saw all over social media of him looking like fierce and confident was something that we should all continue to hope for. And I don't think that was from this goal, but it's great to see on the night.
And Moises from Verde All Day was talking about speaking to Mirtu in the tunnel after the game, and that Mirtu's message was not, screw all you guys, I was right the whole time. I've always been this player. His message was, I'm happy for this, but I need to keep working. I need to keep proving myself to you guys, which I think is with that guy's mentality, I think none of us ever really know exactly what to think about some of the things he says and does, but I think that tilts it just onto the I like it side versus the I don't know about this side.
Yeah. One in the player interview, I don't remember who it was after the match, they talked about like he probably should have come off, but he really wanted 4. Coach wasn't gonna give him a hard time about it. So because his second goal comes 3 minutes later or something like that.
7th minute really is this one.
Yeah.
So this one, it starts off with a long string of possession, and it's like the kind of possession that we have not seen from Austin very often in its entire existence. So we're kind of poking and prodding as we're moving the ball. We run into a dead end, drop it back to keep the ball, reset, pull their defense out. But then once we've pulled them out, not just working yourself into another dead end, but being aggressive and trying to take advantage of that space. And so we cut through them again, move the ball forward, working it side to side, but not slowly. There's like intention and hunger to the way they're moving the ball. And so the ball goes all over the field. It goes over to the right-hand side, drops back to Gallagher. Gallagher plays a ball between lines to Savovic, who kind of takes it on the half turn and drives in between lines, which is, again, another thing we've not seen our midfielders do. How many times have you seen one of our midfielders receive in that area and just stay facing our own goal and play it backwards again, or slowly turn around and face up and let the defenders take it? But Savovic is aggressive, turns, and that turn takes him past 2 guys, and then another guy is drawn towards him, lays it off to Owen, and then Owen plays a nice through ball into space for Ramirez, who's making a run in the box. Ramirez gets onto the ball, and he could have easily taken a shot. It would have been a tight angle, though, but instead he plays a blind back heel and just trusts that his teammates are making runs behind him, and they were. Uzuni gets there first and punches it in. And the commentator, I can't remember the color commentator's name on this game, but she mentioned coordinated movement in this goal. And I want to talk about that concept a little bit. And I think this is a good example of like what it looks like, where coordinated movement is not like synchronized swimming. It's not and a 1 and a 2 and a 3, and we all run to one spot where we're supposed to be. It's about like being on the same page of where do we want to be? How do we want to get there? When this guy goes here and changes the shape, where do I need to be to maintain connection to that shape? And when we're passing the ball around, pulling their defense out of shape. Ramirez makes that run, and Uzuni and Savovic are both running with a lot of intensity into the box to try to get into that space that Ramirez leaves behind when he pulls that defender away. And it's just, I don't know, there's just like this synchronicity to it that I don't know where it came from. I don't know like how they're able to do it here. But I think part of it is just like not overcomplicating things, getting guys on a loose, same page of like, this is kind of what we want to do, and then letting them follow their instincts, follow their experience and their skills, and take advantage of those moments when they are in those positions. And I think this is a really good example of that, where it's not a set play, it's not drawn up, but it was part of the plan. We got there because of the plan we had, and then the guys used their skill and their instincts to finish off a play and reward themselves for it.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I've liked the best about this week is just it feels like trusting guys to play soccer, and then the guys trusting themselves to be aggressive and like play the game and not worry so much about passing triangles or whatever, but just let it flow. And this one is another. God bless LA Galaxy for screwing up their salary cap situation, and Roto for having the ability to like recognize Ramirez, but like Christian Ramirez just does so many special things that, and not even that like don't show up, like that do show up on the score sheet and has for so many years across multiple teams. And I'm just really happy he's doing it for us now, and I will enjoy it for as long as we have him around to do that for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Third one, like you said, takes a little bit longer, but this is in the 35th minute. We have a set piece. I think it's a corner maybe that gets broken.
It is. It's a corner because the announcer's like, "Oh, that corner overhit everything," and then like Uzuni smacks it home on a volley.
Oh, but the play leading up to this was also a corner, I think, where the ball trickles backwards. Gallagher gets onto it, and he's got a bunch of players on his back, so he drops it all the way back to Stuver. Stuver launches it because all the players are still forward. So we're just like, okay, another set piece, but Stuver's taking it from 80 yards away. And Rosales and Biru kind of are challenging to try to get a goal there. Puebla knocks it out for a corner. And then this is where this one comes. But we've seen Uzuni try this, and I think maybe even score from a set piece very similar to this one.
Isn't that the one you were talking about where he kind of called his own shot? The one in the south end?
Yes.
Was that a similar set piece? Yeah.
Because he was in a different space, and maybe Gallagher was at the top of the box, and he like calls Gallagher and is like, trade me, trade spots. You go in the box, I'm going to stand over here. And then I think Facu was the one that found him that time, but this time it's Joseph Rosales. You know, we'll often have like all of our big guys in one spot, and then they'll run to another spot and either like trying to play the ball to them and just, I think the like meat wall tactics is kind of what the word that people are using for it now, but just this big bunch of dudes running to a spot, and you can either play it to them and try to hope that they hit it. In this case, all those guys drag a bunch of defenders further into the box. Uzuni just hangs back and waits at the edge of the box, and Rosales kind of plays this driven chipped pass that lands right on Uzuni's foot. Uzuni volleys it out of the air, hits it really cleanly. Like, you don't need to hit it hard because the pass coming at you is going to generate a lot of the power. So just hit it sweetly and cleanly, and that's what he does. Volleys it out of the air, hits it cleanly back across goal to complete the hat trick. Just the second one, you give him credit for making the run and seeing what Ramirez is doing, but these other two, like, he deserves quite a bit of credit for it.
Yeah, absolutely. This is what we hoped we were going to get from him the whole time. Like, this is the guy who made all those goals back in Spain, right? Is the guy we have right now. And let's just hope he can continue that, because he can make some special moves, and he is really talented, and maybe Bro knew what he was doing when he acquired him. But, I mean, just so good to see him do that. And then I talked about this a little bit, but it's good to see him stay hungry. Like, the dude ran all night long in both directions. And I know it wasn't as hot on Sunday as it was on Thursday, but also you could give him an excuse to like get the hat trick and then just try to poach another goal for fun and not be super involved on both ways. But he was all night long, just a man with a motor.
Yeah, for sure. So we almost get a fourth later on in the game when Vasquez is on the field. I think it's Facu Torres plays a through ball for Pajeta, doesn't play it quite quick enough, or maybe a combination of that and Pajeta not holding his run a little bit. But Pajeta gets played through, squares the ball for Vasquez, and Vasquez finishes it off, which is great to see. Like you want a guy like Vasquez to score in a moment like this to get his confidence up, to get feeling good about himself. But Pajeta was offside, so doesn't count. Hopefully, Brandon can still take some confidence from it. And the rest of the game, like the second half, wasn't super eventful. I think Davy talked about the end of the first half, even that at halftime, they talked about like, hey, great job, but keep your focus. Like I noticed you're not doing it the same way in the last 5 minutes of that half as you were the first 40. We need to come back out in the second half and take this game seriously. And said that was kind of the conversation at the end of the game as well, where like let's use these moments to build experience, to learn, and say like, we can't take our foot off the gas. Let's stay focused, stay structured, and don't feel like we don't have to work as hard or be as switched on because we're winning by a few goals. Like let's use this moment to train these moments and like stay switched on for 90.
Yeah, I don't know if they did that successfully, but I do feel like defensively in the second half on Sunday night, they were better than in the second half on Thursday night. Like on Thursday, I felt like maybe a goal was going to come, and a goal did come. They got called back. I never felt like that game was going to change. Maybe it was going to be 3-1, but I didn't really feel like there was a chance that Austin was going to lose that match in the second half because they seemed to stay dialed in, at least on the defensive side of the ball, all night.
Yeah, Puebla did not threaten a whole lot. So like
Honestly,
credit to Austin, but I don't think they made him work as hard as other teams maybe have.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I didn't talk about in the first game that I had written in the notes is like, yeah, man, Puebla, those guys are all wearing like 5 and 6 and 7, and they're just like not very good. Because when you looked at the Tijuana match, there was like, number 212, I think, number 146, guys that are deep in the system that were called into action because that's what we're doing in Leagues Cup. Like, yeah, Puebla's just not very good. That they threw the best that they had to offer at Austin, and they're still just not great.
They did have a couple of guys who I think are starters that came on like later in the game that didn't start the game, but they didn't look much better with those guys on the field. So I don't know if it would have done much. Yeah.
What other players do we need to talk about? I guess the one I'll start with is like Sabovic. I felt like had a really solid night, especially on Sunday.
Yes.
And was decent on Thursday. And maybe he isn't terrible, and he was just like verbally abused by Roto so much that he was beaten down. I don't know.
The guy that I saw Sunday night was the guy I thought we were getting. Like watching the tape of him in Sweden, full matches of like who he was and the way he played. That is the guy I saw. And I had given up hope. I've said this on the show. Like I held on hope a lot longer than a lot of other people did, and then finally gave up. And I think now we're maybe seeing that switch get flipped. And I think something you said earlier is maybe the key of like letting guys play soccer, like giving them the permission to be a little bit brave, a little bit like free in certain moments where Nico is a very pragmatic coach, right? And that ball where, okay, Sabovic receives it in between two defenders, he has a choice to just trap it with his foot and stay facing his own goal, or he can turn and beat two defenders. And he took that choice where in the last year and a half or 2 years, he's mostly taken the other choice. So I think that probably has something to do with it. It's just like, keep it simple, go out and play soccer.
Well, and the other guy I think that we should call out about this week, which he gets a goal, but like Joseph Rosales just brings something to the table, I think in terms of speed and just in terms of like knowledge that Austin has not had a lot of. And we haven't seen a ton of it out of him, maybe because he's not exactly playing where he's like best positioned for success. But I feel like this week he's one of those guys. He's like, oh, that dude is one of the best players on the field, no matter what. And it doesn't always show up in the numbers, but it's just like the eye test for him. It's just he can be a special difference maker.
Yeah, he won man of the match against Tijuana with that goal. A few other chances where The keeper had to make a good save. Another one where he hits the crossbar on a curler with his left foot. Early in the game so in that 3-2-2-3 shape where those attacking mids and the wingers can kind of like rotate around each other and interchange a little bit. I feel like early on in that Tijuana game, it was Ervin Torres was his attacking midfielder on that side. I felt like he wasn't trusting Ervin enough and trying to do a little bit too much himself. And so at the very beginning of that game, I was a little bit concerned about what Joseph's role was going to be in the game. As the game went on, he started being a little bit less selfish in some of those moments. Ervin worked his way into the game and started, I think maybe said like, hey, I can help. Like, let me do some
I'm
of this.
a professional soccer player. Yeah.
But also, Joseph didn't back off that much and proved me a little bit wrong, where it's like, okay, yeah, do your thing, man. It's gonna work.
Yeah. Who else do you want to talk about?
Vasquez still not getting a lot of chances, but I thought he was quite useful in hold up play and like connecting where we're building out of the back. We don't have an option in kind of those back five building up. Brandon would drop in and we'd split lines and play to his feet, and he was able to connect wide or drop it back into a midfielder, and we can kind of continue the attack there. So still really want to see him get more chances, but he's still a very useful player to have on the field for that skill set there. And then his intelligence and work rate on the defensive side. Again, these aren't the things you want to say about your striker, but while he's not scoring and working his way into form, you want him to keep doing these things and help the team, and he's doing that. I'm trying to look at so between these two games, who else came in? Owen Wolf, I think I talked a little bit about this. I think he's working his way back into form. I feel like in that first half against Puebla, he looked a bit more like the Owen of old. I think he's not quite there, but it's encouraging to see him taking steps in that direction. Alice Due got a handful of minutes in the Tijuana game, but it was a time of the match where we were kind of just maintaining the lead, and so I don't think it's super fair to judge his performance there. Jaden Nelson looked spicy against Puebla at the end. That was encouraging as well for a guy who kind of got publicly reprimanded for not having the right mentality a few games ago to coming on and I guess like redeeming himself a little bit and saying like, hey, I'm hungry. I'm going to come out and I'm going to work for you whenever you put me on.
Yeah, the other one I would talk about is I think we got like the best Ilie. Did Ilie go 90 in the first one?
He did.
Yeah, so it goes 90 and 45.
Yeah, because he finished at center back.
Yeah, I think he was solid. I mean, I feel like that's like if you're going to get that's what you want out of Ilie is play 1.5 out of your 2 matches and not have to rely on him too much. But I think he stayed within himself, did good stuff. I know when he didn't start in the second match because I was like right down there behind the goal, like the amount of connection that he has with Brad Stuver when they're like collectively coaching the guys on the field, even when he's in warm-ups, I think is really, really helpful.
Yeah.
So it was good to see that from him.
I don't think I have any other. We talked about this a little bit. Biru, I thought was really good at center back over these 2 games. Again, the competition is what the competition is, but he didn't shoot himself in the foot or like hurt the team by turning off in the wrong moment like he has in the past.
Well, do you want to move on and talk about the matches this week quickly and then call it? So
Austin FC will play again Thursday night. I think this one's a different time, right? Is this one 7:30?
At least as of right now, it is.
Okay. So this one's going to be against Club America. We'll kind of stick to the same format as introducing these Liga MX teams to you. I think this one needs a little bit less of an introduction, but we'll still go through it. But they play in Mexico City. Their home is the legendary Estadio Azteca. They're talking about their status or like their historical place in the league. They're the New York Yankees of Liga MX, where they'll have years where they're not the best, but give them a couple of years and they'll be the best again. And chances are they were the best last year or 2 years ago too. And that has been true for most of history. Last season, they finished 4th and 8th respectively in the 25-26 Apertura and Clausura. So Liga MX, for those that don't know, essentially play 2 seasons per year. So they finished 4th and 8th in the last year's seasons. And then were knocked out in the first round in both sets of playoffs. This season so far, they have 2 wins, 1 draw in the young season, or sitting in first place right now. And then they won their first 2 Leagues Cup matches, both of them 3-1. The first one at home in Mexico City against San Diego. The next one in Portland against Portland, 3-1 also. And so they are number 1 in the Liga MX table. We are number 1 in the MLS table in Leagues Cup. So a true clash of giants, I think, is what everyone will be saying.
That's what all the people are saying. I've seen billboards just up the street for that. But yeah, I think maybe somewhat unexpected. But I mean, the thing which we talked a little bit about before with the way that this tournament is structured is you have to be one of the top 4 teams in your respective league. And right now, Austin is top of the table from among MLS clubs, but I don't think there's any doubt that Austin has to win this one to advance still, because 4 MLS teams advance and 6 MLS teams have won both their first 2 matches. So there's not a lot of room for, leeway in this one. There's not like a draw, I don't think, like a draw, a backdoor in kind of way to make it or not, but it does seem like the results show that like the MLS teams do care still more about this maybe than the Liga MX teams do, which is a point in Austin's favor.
Yeah, I think there's only 2. Yeah, there's 2 MLS teams that are eliminated so far, and then the other 16 could still advance. And so it's tough. And I was looking at last year's MLS table. There were 5 teams with either 6 or 7 points throughout the 3 phase 1 games that did not advance. And so we could potentially advance with a draw, where, remember, it's MLS Next Pro rules, where if you draw, you go to penalty kicks. Whoever wins the pins gets an extra point. So we could end up, even with the draw during regulation, we could end up with either 7 or 8 points.
Or 8, yeah.
And that might not be enough, which is crazy.
Well, why don't you go into maybe who from Club America Austin fans should watch out for? Because it feels like there's a lot of familiar names.
There's a lot of names. I feel like these other teams, like Gil Moro was the big guy on Tijuana. I didn't really know who to mention on Puebla, which maybe turned out to be the right call. This one, there's too many to choose from. So last season, their top players were Brian Rodriguez, who is Uruguayan. You would recognize him for playing for LAFC a few years ago. And then Alex Zendejas, who you'll recognize from the U.S. men's national team roster and the World Cup. They were both injured. Rodriguez is back, and I think has started in both of these games. He started at least one of the games, and I think played in both of them, if not started both of them. Zendejas, I believe, is still injured and will probably not be in this game, but the list does not stop there. The Brazilian veteran Rafael Veiga, who's a really good midfielder. Israel Reyes was on the Mexican World Cup squad. Henry Martin and Eric Sanchez are both former MLS regulars. And then just to kind of level set where their roster is at, Edwin Cerrillo, who was at FC Dallas and at the LA Galaxy, really good MLS midfielder. America just bought him, and he will be like a depth rotation piece at best there. And so that's where their roster is compared to most MLS, all MLS rosters, really. Just not just like a few MLS teams have 2, 3, 4, 5 high-end players. These guys have 12 of them. And that's the reality of the difference in Liga MX at the top end.
And do you think that this is going to be probably the most lopsided, not in favor of Austin FC crowd that we've seen? Like, I feel like that's got to be the potential. There's going to be a ton of people who are either just Liga MX fans who know Club America or who are directly Club America fans, including some friends of ours who will hopefully be wearing Austin FC jerseys. But like, it seems like there's a real potential to sort of be, for the first time, a visitor in your own home for Austin.
Yeah, I don't expect it to be like overwhelmingly in favor of America or like overwhelmingly yellow jerseys in the crowd. I do think it will be like the most we've ever seen in an opposition. I'm curious to know like what percentage it's going to be. Do you have a guess for that? Do you think we hold it to 50-50, or do you think it will be more
I
America than
think
that?
I think it I think it will be more America than that if you exclude the supporter section. But just knowing how many people like you have to be in Verde to be in the supporter section, like knowing what that looks like, I think that turns the balance for the stadium as a whole. But if you just look, around the other three corners of the stadium, there's going to be a lot of yellow.
Yeah, and this was one of the games I believe that was included for season ticket holders, but it's a Thursday night during the summer. It's going to be hot. The team's not in great form, like this week excluded. That like I just said I'm not using all four of my seats, and so there's a good chance it's going to be America fans in my seats, and that's probably true for a lot of folks. So I'm not expecting it to be like 80-20, but 60% wouldn't surprise me.
And just, we talked about this, I think, off air last week, but if you just go to SeatGeek, these are the highest prices for an Austin FC match that you have had in a while, maybe all year long for like your average seat. And you have to believe that's because there's like interest from Club America fans, not that suddenly there's this overwhelming interest from Austin fans who want to celebrate with me on birthday, because that's also on Thursday night.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's what it is for sure.
For sure. People want to show up and be somewhere in the stadium, but not sitting beside me.
So, like we said before, Austin needs a result and maybe a win, not just a draw, to be able to advance here. If they do that, the window for the next round of games would be August 25th to the 27th, which is a couple of weeks from now. Austin plays MLS games this coming Sunday, and then the following Wednesday, and then the following Saturday again. So it would be adding to the kind of fixture congestion here, but I think there's a time in Austin FC, like we were talking about depth, where when we have a bunch of injuries and we can't afford to rotate, where I would have said, I would honestly be okay if we don't make it through. And I don't just so we don't have to play another game and run our guys ragged. The kind of the spot that we're in the season and the way that Davy's been rotating, kind of disregarding like what the game is, like putting out a good lineup, but not doing it at the risk of overworking somebody. I'm fine with him kind of continuing that. And I like wouldn't be dreading an extra game. I don't feel like it's going to kill us because we don't have that much to play for in MLS right now. And so
Right.
I kind of feel like just playing games is probably good for these guys right now, and just keep rotating as you need. Put out a strong lineup, of course, but if a guy's worked too much over the last two games, don't start him in this one, or maybe play him 60 and schedule a sub there. Do you understand what I'm saying here? Like, have you ever felt that way where it's like, I actually don't want them to play more games?
I have felt that way a lot, and I do not feel that way right now. I feel like we can just go ahead and transfer into talk about FC Dallas too, because that's on Sunday now. But one of the things that we touched on a little bit is if you look at this last match and you look at I'm going to ignore Sanchez for Wolf because that was maybe injury related, but still it's like Ilie on the bench. But, Pajeta, Nelson, Heinzike, Vasquez come off the bench. And all four of those guys would be locked on 90-minute starters. If they can't play, we're stressed out about what's going to happen for Austin for most of the history of this club, maybe even including 2022. And so the fact that you have those guys that can come on and play 30 minutes and then turn around and be completely fresh for Thursday, get some amount of time, be able to play on Sunday too, I feel like is what we hope we were going to see from this team when we talked about maybe the World Cup being good for them, but it feels like it's coming to fruition. And I think it's also, the extra games really help when you're learning a different system. And maybe it's an interim system, or maybe it's a system Austin's going to play, but there's no substitute for real live action when it looks like when you're trying to make a team mesh, and especially a team that, now you've got 16 guys that are going to play significant minutes.
Yeah. FC Dallas plays away at Toluca in Leagues Cup on Wednesday. So they have a big trip. They're also on 6 points right now. So they've won both of their games. I would imagine, like, yeah, it's away and it's like a tight turnaround, but it's not so tight that I think they'll be looking to rotate. So I would imagine both teams are rotating as much as they need to for this Leagues Cup game, but not completely rotating away, but then probably doing the same for this game against Dallas on Sunday, like this Copa Tejas game on Sunday, where you want to put out a good team, but I don't think either team will be willing to sacrifice one of these games entirely for the other.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. So Dallas comes in. This one's on Sunday, and I think this one got moved earlier. This was originally supposed to be on Saturday, which would have been a real nightmare for Austin, but we get the date moved back a day. Sunday night, 7:30 at home. Dallas is 6 in the West. This sort of disturbed me. I knew that it was kind of one-sided, but I went back and looked, and it's 8 Dallas wins, 3 Austin wins, 3 draws in the history of the franchise. So I don't love that. But feels like anything can happen. And if this team continues the same form that they've had for the last 2 matches, hopefully into Club America, hopefully being as deep or deeper than they've ever been, like I've got hope for Sunday night in a way that I did not have through the recent 3-game league losing skid.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know really what else to say about what to expect. We haven't played Dallas yet, right?
Right.
So
it's the first time this year. First time since last September.
And yeah, I mean, part of me is protecting myself and expecting Austin to just completely crap the bed after looking so good in Leagues Cup. And it's like, okay, maybe we can actually compete with Dallas, and then just looking like a completely different team, which is entirely possible. Hopefully that's not what happens though. Because I think a win against Dallas would go a long way for Davy Arnaud and for these players and for this fan base as far as morale goes.
And if this team is going to make the playoffs, this is a team that's 14th out of 15 teams in the West. So there's a lot of things that need to go right for them to do that. Like winning this Dallas match at home,
not only because it's
to be
Dallas
part of
match,
it.
yeah, because it's at home. Like we have to start winning home games if we want to have any chance.
Yeah, because we're gonna have to start at least drawing on the road because like there's no ability to do that. But for sure, like you got to pick up 3 at home against teams where you're relatively evenly matched for this year to matter at all. And just like I said a minute ago, like I don't know, man. I feel okay about that happening. I don't know how, and maybe this will. I feel really stupid after we get blown out on Thursday, and I'll be like, why did dumb green-eyed Jeremiah like think on Monday night things were going to be okay? But for now, like you just ride the form that they've had.
I think that would be a respectable outcome, though, right? Like I think as long as we don't completely embarrass ourselves against America, I think we can still come out of Leagues Cup like feeling pretty good about ourselves.
I do. And I think that we will when we do this next Monday, we'll feel good about this week if there's a respectable loss against America and a win against Dallas, and still feel like
absolutely
the momentum that Austin has built is still back on the right track.
Yeah, for sure. I think we've covered all that we can, Jeremiah. Thanks so much, listeners, for listening. We would like to remind you to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. I have an update on Patreon stuff. I would like to apologize to everyone for teasing it at a certain point and then pumping the brakes. Some of the suppliers for the rewards got overwhelmed with World Cup stuff, and we're a little bit too optimistic on turnaround time for stuff, but the ball is rolling. I have a sample photo in my inbox right now. So I am committing to this week getting the Patreon rewards swapped out, some images and stuff set up, and we can start pitching it in earnest next week. So thank you for your patience on that, but it is moving now. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back next week to review the Club America and Dallas matches and then preview the Seattle and Philadelphia matches and cover any other Austin FC news that breaks. Until then, I'm Landon Cottom.
I'm Jeremiah Bentley.
We'll catch you next time.
When no one is around.
Think for nothings, you never.
La gente
Oh my god.
Because they love cheap boom boom sauce.
Yeah.